Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Couple of Nukes. As always, I'm your host, Mr. Whiskey, and I am currently traveling on the road, not in my normal studio. So I apologize if the sound or visual quality is not as good, but we're going to get into today's episode regardless. And going on, approaching 300 episodes here, not too long from now, in a couple weeks. And so I have interviewed a lot of people, and it has become increasingly more difficult to really get my attention and shock me. But today's guest was able to do that. I looked through his bio online and I was like, this is something different. I've come across a lot of stories, and this is a unique one. Unique in the sense that it's the first time I've heard of it, but I think there are a lot of people going through the same thing he went through who just aren't talking about it or sharing about it. And so that's why I think this conversation is going to be really important. A lot of people feel like they're alone. And as today's guest preaches, a lot of social media has put forward that isolation by showing a lot of highlights of life, by not showing the struggles. And so many people are playing this comparison game that is just destroying their mental health and physical health. So we're going to get into that today with Mr. Cam Cordin. Great to have you here. And could you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm 49. I've had three divorces. I'm currently remarried again. And I'll start with how I got to this point shortly. But basically, I can start back like 20, and I was in my probably early 20s that I was really attached to work and training. Yeah, I was always really into sports, but I got hooked into, I was obsessive about work, obsessive about training jujitsu. And I had relationships that, like, I was there, like, I wasn't abusive or anything like that. I was, at home paying the bills, but I wasn't mentally there.
Mm.
Every chance I could get, I vanished. I was training or working. I never really had time to connect. And maybe you can make a point that I chose poorly as well, most likely. And over the years, like I would beat myself up. I would beat my body up like really, really, really badly. And it started probably at 37. One day I woke up, I was training and I was like, wow, I'm aching like really badly, more than normal. I kept going and never really gave much to it. But by the time like 42 hit, I was going through my second divorce. I was married 16 years to her, had a
Wow.
son. And like literally, I was going to move out of the country. And it was strange is all of a sudden my hands were dead. Like literally, I woke up one day, I couldn't even feel them. And my joints, shoulders, neck, back, it felt like someone took like a crowbar tool. And I was like, what is happening? I still ignored it. And I went on like probably maybe midlife crisis at 42. And I rebounded and found another girl 16 years younger and continued on my path. Like it was fun for a while. Then I was back to training hard wherever I was. And the hands and like everything was worse. And I said, you know what? I have to go see a doctor because like I mean, they were burning all the way up to my elbows. And I was in a foreign country. They strapped up electrodes to my hands to
Mm.
read the nerve impulse. And the look this woman gave me, it was a look of horror because there was no impulse at all. And this was roughly like right before COVID. So I sought out a doctor, a really good doctor in the US, and they did the surgery. And the guy told me afterwards, he's like, you should get most of the feeling back. And I was like, oh my God, what have I done to myself? Meanwhile, the rest of my body was still falling. And I went right back to my old routine, training nonstop, creating problems with my relationship. And we're back in the US. My son moved in with me, and everything seemed it wasn't great, it like based on everything. Like it was functioning, but
Right.
it wasn't good. It was a Saturday night. My ex-wife and I, we agreed we're going to get a divorce. And, and I thought to myself, I walked outside. It was a beautiful Saturday night in Florida. I walked outside and I thought, like, wow, is this it? I was 44 at the time. And I said, is this my life now? My son's going to graduate high school in 2.5 years. I'm on my third marriage. It's ending. So, what do I have going for myself? I'm 44. I feel like 70. What am I going to do?
Right.
And I saw that like the moon on the deck reflecting, and I saw some kettlebells I hadn't used for a while. And I looked at it and I said, by the time my son finishes high school, if I don't feel like I did when I was 20, I'm going to take that kettlebell and walk into the pool with it. And at that moment, I felt like instant relief because there was an end game. It
Mm.
wasn't like I'm just going to quit, but I had a mission. And along the way, I tried everything to heal my body. But ironically, it was my mind that was my body healed, but my mind healed as well. It was a hard journey. I tried crazy stuff. I was finished with doctors, and I did forget to say this, but I did go to doctors with the pains and everything. It didn't help. They never really truly help. They just wanted to do a slow managed decline with
Right.
pain medication. And I said, no way, I'm not going to do that because my life was always physically active. I wore this like a badge of honor. So I went on the path. I tried everything you can think of and made some really great discoveries and basically created a system around this that has great results. And a lot of people have had it, have really, really experienced tremendous effects. And basically, it's a pretty simple system, but we'll go into it. It's pretty intense as well.
Right. Now, a couple of things. So, were you U.S. born and raised?
Yes,
And so you headed out of country for treatment, or you happened to be out of country at the time?
I went out of the country for a woman.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't blame you there. That's a whole episode on its own. I don't blame you there, but
It,
okay. Yeah.
that's
I've
true.
I mean, I've changed states before for a woman, but out of country is a whole bigger journey. And then you talked a lot about training, training, training. Is this just maintaining your physical health, or was this fighting? Was this gym routines? What was this training you were doing?
It was jujitsu,
Okay.
for the past 25 years. And then before that, I was always, as a youth, all American swimmer. And after that, I was really into the weightlifting. I was always kind of a freak of nature with strength. And I was in the wrong sport, but I tore my body up with that too. Everything takes a toll. I mean,
Right.
eventually the receipt comes due for the damage you do for your body. It's just a matter
Yeah.
of time.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the Mr. Olympia champions in the past and what they look like now and their health struggles. And it's so sad to me to see the peak they reached and now the consequences of that. You look at Mr. Olympia guys, David Goggins, a lot of these hardcore athletes, and it's like, that's a personal trade-off if you want to have that peak and then knowing the consequences. But would you say that was the root cause, or how did you determine? Did any doctor try? Because I know on the show we've talked a lot about they do a lot of symptom management, not a lot of root cause destruction, root cause analysis. So did anyone try to get to the root of your pain, or was it always just here are the symptoms, let's deal with it?
I mean, like nerve damage was, a trapped nerve, but I waited too long. And it was also
Mm,
like I did let like broken bones, like just I kept going. And that's probably, it wasn't smart in hindsight, but I didn't want to miss, I really enjoyed it, but it came with a cost. I don't regret anything, but would I have been smarter if I could go back in time? Probably.
I get it. And serving in the military, having done that, there's a lot of people who will just tough it out and go through it because they don't want to deal with medical or, maybe losing their job temporarily or whatever it may be. If not for, we've seen a lot of athletes push for back-to-back competitions and stuff like that. And then I assume you were actively competing in jiu-jitsu, correct?
No, I just enjoyed it.
You just
Uh,
enjoyed it?
but yeah, no, I just didn't have time with work to,
Okay.
yeah. But that would probably be even worse if I was competing because then it would probably be more damage.
Right,
But
right.
and the other factor too is you don't know when your body breaks down if it's from the damage you do or if there's a genetic component as well. And I did fail to bring this up. Like my father has a genetic nerve disease, and I've
Okay.
watched him decline piece by piece over the years with his function. And that was also another like deciding factor. Like I did not want to live my life in like a managed decline. So I set out for like, go all in or nothing.
Right. And then I know from reading your bio online, and you mentioned it earlier in the episode, you talked about a 911-day death contract. And that was basically what you mentioned earlier, making a decision you were either going to change or, you know, and you're now 770 plus days past that deadline. So I'd love to
Yeah.
get into the process of from when you made that agreement with yourself to now, what changed and how did you do that change?
Well, I mean, there's so much, and like if I could go back in time, I teach it in a different order, obviously, just
Right.
because it makes. But like I can go through the steps. What changed is eventually I did get divorced, but it wasn't that night. It was 2 years later. The first thing I changed was I started really experimenting with a lot of stuff. The first, probably one that I noticed that was really effective is niacin. And niacin is one of those vitamins. If you ask a doctor about it, the flushing one, they'll discourage it. They'll say it's not good for you. It causes liver damage. It helps with the nerves. It helps open up your vessels. It causes your blood vessels to increase, and you turn bright red. And it's phenomenal. It's a vitamin that acts both as a vitamin and a drug. And it helped me with my nerves, but it also helped me just mentally as well, because I was in a bad spot. Everything was kind of like falling down on me.
Right.
And it was very enjoyable. And it really helped, oxygenate the joints and everything else. So that was probably like maybe one of the first things that worked really well. And I told it to a lot of friends that had issues that I trained with or just knew. I said, you should try niacin. And they loved it. A lot of people hate the flush, but I can say I enjoy it. It's one of those things, if you know it's coming, it's like 30 minutes, but 30 minutes to an hour, but it's rather enjoyable if you just accept what is happening to you. But also a couple people really dislike it.
Right. And for those who aren't familiar at all with what the flush is, could you kind of explain what that is?
It's like your skin turns bright red. You feel like a burning feeling in your face. It's really just an amazing vitamin that really doesn't get talked about. It actually gets discouraged by doctors.
Mm.
It's super cheap. You can find it on Amazon, like 500 milligram capsules for like nothing, and like a huge bottle for $12. So it's kind of a hidden gem. I think no one talks about. So it's
Okay.
worthwhile.
And that was one part of your process. And then what
That
else
was
was?
that was one part. The the other part that really helps, and I think it applies to so many people, and it sounds silly, is massive water consumption. Is that most people I've worked with, they don't drink a lot of water.
100%.
Yeah. And like I always go through people's routine and I said, well, what's the first thing you do when you wake up? And they say, I go make coffee. And I know from my routine that I'm having 90 ounces of water before having coffee. From the moment I get out of bed, I have 30 ounces. Then I do a little bit morning workout, another 30 ounces. Then I go down to my office, to plan the day, another 30 ounces. Then it's coffee. And I think that people underestimate the power of water. And if you don't have enough water, it's going to cause anxiety, shallow breathing. And then you throw coffee on top of it first. It's like throwing gasoline on a fire already. It's just terrible. So that's really important. And the next thing I would say, and it's really kind of a strange one to say, is clutter. Clutter is, if you have clutter, like physical clutter in your house, if you walk into your house and it looks like an episode from Hoarders, there is no way you can ever accomplish anything. I think that a clean space is one of the big, like, you have to have. You can't, because if you don't have it, you have those piles of someday I'll do this,
Right.
clothes everywhere. It's like you're walking in and it's instant anxiety. And like, you have to eliminate that. I didn't eliminate that till my divorce was going on, and I saw it, and it was a big, like aha moment. But once you eliminate clutter, you also eliminate a lot of decisions. So I preach, like, if you walk into it, you should start room by room. If you haven't used it in 6 months, get rid of it, because most likely you're not going to use it ever again. Of course, there's always that time, like, oh, if I had that, I threw it away, this would have been great. But how often does that happen? It gives you such peace of mind. So I think, like, when you have, like Fry, I had the death contract, you need a peace of mind because you have a clear vision. Everything else is just an obstacle. So it's really important to, if you have that goal and there's a deadline attached to it, you have to make sure everything functions smoothly. And clutter is a sure way to derail the process. And I do talk a lot about digital clutter.
Mm.
People have a million notifications. They can't find apps on their phone. And if, like, I look at my phone here, I literally have one screen. I put everything in folders, know where they are. I turn off notifications. And I think if you don't hear the notifications, again, it's less noise and you can focus on your task at hand. Just any distraction from what you're trying to achieve is going to derail you. You can think people push back at it and say, well, I need to know these notifications. Why? Anything that's truly important, you know about it, and you can have a notification on it. But if it's some group chat that, people just send memes all day, it's like, shut it off, eliminate it. You have to go through, just get rid of it. So that's I know it sounds kind of silly, but, like, you have to have a good environment if you're trying to achieve something. Otherwise, it's just, you're adding. And that's the other thing I really hammer home, is subtraction is a problem-solving method. Is you don't need more. You have to, and people reject this. It's hard when people hear that. Is people always want to say, well, what should I do? I'm going to add this to my daily life. It's like, add it where? It's like, oh, your house is on fire and you want to add stuff to it. You have to remove. And anytime you have, like, we all are systems. And this is one thing I talk in my book about, is you have to have a system, but we'll go to that later. Is when you add something, your system is less robust, and then it becomes more fragile. And I can give you this example. I'm sure everyone's experienced this. You go to a new location, you're at a new hotel, and you go in and you see the shower, and, like, I like the one shot, like the one turn, you can figure out what the temperature is. Some showers have two, and you're like, okay. And then you have to sit there and mess with the knobs a little bit longer. And then there's the third option where you have the three ones and you have to figure out which
Right.
shower head to go. And you're like, oh my God. And automatically you're feeling anxiety the second day. You're like, oh, I don't want to take a shower. This thing is such a nightmare. So when you add, you do cause more anxiety because it's another decision in your life. So that like environment, you have to clear that out. I mean, I can go a long time on environment. And the other thing about environment is after you get rid of clutter, is if you truly are trying to change, you have to kill off old identities.
Mm.
And you have to be aware of those old identities. And to do that, you also have to get rid of all the items that old identity has, if that makes sense.
It does. In relationships as well, there are certain people you need to cut out of your life when you're trying to move and change into a certain direction if they're not in alignment with it. And I agree about the organization and the environment. And I really appreciate the comment on the digital clutter because we are constantly being bombarded by advertisements, by messages, by posts, by notifications. Like you mentioned, we all know that one group chat, or in particular, that one friend who never seems to work. It seems to always be on their phone sending you stuff, and it's hard to ignore that. It just clutters up your space in your mind. And I think a great example is like you could be have stuff put aside, and then you get a notification. You're like, I'll look at it later, but then it just keeps nagging at you to look at it. And I think it's a huge distraction. And I think we're looking at get more cars, get a bigger house, get more rooms, get more stuff, get more furniture. So it's always this more and more and more. Yeah, and we've seen some push for the more minimalism life, and I think it is extremely beneficial. That's why I think that is super important, the digital clutter than the real room. And I think when you have clutter, the more it builds up. I also feel like it produces and breeds a spirit of laziness. Like it slowly you just become lazier and lazier because being lazy becomes more efficient. When you have a routine, you have to be disciplined to follow it. But when you don't make your bed, when you are just throwing stuff on the ground, looking for stuff, and I'll tell you, I hate having to look for clothes through all piles of laundry. When I have it all organized, it makes life easier. And that efficiency, like you said, is directly related to anxiety, to depression, and to your productivity. So I think it's super important. And then I know from your bio, and you mentioned your book, which we'll get into as well, you talk about cold exposure, carnivore
Yes.
diet, and kettlebells being kind of three main pillars of what you did on top of setting up that environment for yourself. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, the first time, actually, if we could jump back, I would like to, because one of the big things in my book, and it's kind of like, because I labeled it savage chill. And the savage part is being willing to do the things that are uncomfortable on purpose.
Right.
And the chill part is the rules: no panicking, no whining.
Mm,
And if you have savage without chill, you just have aggression. And if you have chill without savage, you just have laziness.
mm,
So this is like the foundation, the two rules. And I can tell you, it's a great story. Is it was 2008. I was living in Lake Tahoe at the time, and my son was maybe 4. I don't know remember the exact date, but we would go out on hikes every day, and it was snowing, and the snow was up to his knees, and we would go on really long hikes. I really pushed him for walking, and
right.
the snow was coming down, and all of a sudden, like we're 45 minutes away, and it's starting to come up to it's well past, like almost to his hip, and I was like, okay, and he's struggling. And now it's finally up to, he's stepping in places and it's going up to his waist. He's crying. He's like, I want to go home. And I thought, oh my God, this is bad. And right away I thought, like, I can't panic. If I panic, he'll panic.
Mm,
So I told him, I told him, I said, Baron, I said, I said, there's two rules in life. I said, no panicking and no whining. And, and he's like, okay. He takes another step. He starts panicking a little. I said, what's rule one? He's like, no panicking. I said, what's rule two? He's like, no whining. So we did it and made it back through it, back to the house safely. But it was a really profound moment that it seems like a simple rules, but it's one of those two simple rules that it can take a lifetime to master. And even then, you're never truly going to master it. You're going to catch it faster. And I think
Right.
if you're self-aware to those rules and when panic hits, what do? You have to call it panic in your head. But if you're thinking catastrophe all the time, like worst case scenarios, it's never going to improve the situation. And so drawing that into the cold plunge is when you go into a cold plunge, and I built mine out of a deep freezer, and you can build it for maybe $1,000 if you buy a brand new deep freezer, nice, and even less if you buy a used one. And you go in the cold. I mean, that is working on rule one right off the bat because it's
Right.
cold. It's 30 degrees, and you're going to hit it, and you are panicking. The first time you go into it's terrifying. And it teaches you, it rewires your nervous system to not panic. It works on it. And I can't even, there's so much a cold plunge does. I mean, it's amazing what it does for your body. But I think what it does for your mind is unbelievable. I mean, it fixes people's life tremendously. The longer you go in, you really have to control your mind because the human body is extremely resilient, but you really connect with the human body. And it's the greatest form of meditation you can have, especially for when life comes at you for real. Now, all these people that go meditate and they sit in a quiet room, that's great, but it doesn't prepare you for something like when life hits you. I mean,
Mm.
because life hits you when you least expect it, you have to
Yeah.
stay calm. And that really teaches you that. And, when I put a deadline on myself, it really reemphasizes that, like the no panicking, the no whining, and like you start understanding like the voices inside your head that, when things are bad, you can recognize it. Like, this always happens to me. Like, I'm just that guy. It's unlucky. You start recognizing it intentionally, and it becomes a skill to survive into it and do it when you don't want to. And the kettlebell aspect is once my body started really healing and I was doing these long cold plunges, you want to move. You get out, you don't want to sit there as I can tell you a story. It's kind of fun. I was in it, and then like as soon as I started getting it, I started a minute, then 2 minutes, then
Right.
3 minutes, and I was like, "This is great." I was feeling great, like immediate. My body was starting to feel better. And one day, I think it was like a week, maybe I hit 8 minutes, and I was like,
Wow.
"Wow, this is great." I got out. I was feeling good. I wasn't cold. And all of a sudden, I'm like, I'm gonna go lie out on the pool deck. And I'm lying down. There's a little sun left. And out of nowhere, I feel like this cold, like deep, deep cold running through my veins. And I'm like, what is going on? And I had no idea what the afterdrop was. And the afterdrop is when your vessels open up in your limbs, it starts putting the cold water running through the rest of your body. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, wow, or actually lying. So I'm going to die. And And next thing I know, I fell asleep. I woke up, I felt reborn. But, and it was another thing, it was a great experience that I talk about in the book too, is people fear death. Like it's the biggest fear a lot of people have, myself included. But once you have experiences like that, it was a pretty peaceful experience and like enlightening. And then you start realizing, like, if you fear it, if you fear death or fear losing, you're playing not to lose versus you're playing to win. And once you get that mindset,
Right.
you have to play to win. Playing to lose just doesn't work. You're going to lose. Someone that's playing to win, you'll meet. And you have to have that mindset. And I think if you push past discomfort to, each time pushing harder and harder and not comparing yourself to others, but to yourself, you're improving each time, you're getting tougher and you have setbacks. It's fine. But I think you have to have that mindset again with a goal is playing to win. Because, like for me, I committed to the contract and I was honoring it and I'm going to play to win. So anyway, I got off a little tangent on the cold plunge. But
No, but I
then
appreciate it.
right after I started doing the longer cold plunges, I just saw the kettlebells and I said, I have to do these. This is the way to warm up because it really makes you sweat. So I started doing that and like I started feeling really great after it. And it is such a great system in that I found that it was just like an obvious find that you would want to do it in that order, cold, then workout. And I found is one, it makes you want to work out because I'm going to be honest. I'm sure everyone's going to be honest. It's like working out is not that fun if you're doing it right. Like I don't ever really ever remember being like, can't wait to go out there and kill myself today working out. But this makes you like you have the choice. You can warm up really slow and painfully, or you can start with the kettlebell and you want to do the workout. You're ready for the workout. So it takes away the need for motivation. It's because you can either go in and go inside and warm up really slowly, or to say, I'm going to work out, get my body moving. So it's one of those things that it's a lot about the whole book is you like motivation. You can't live on motivation. You have to have it designed into the program so you succeed. Because if you rely on motivational speakers to get you going, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So that's my point. Like the kettlebell is like a great tool. I look at it as you can do it all in your house. You go to the gym, you have to wait. You have to wait for equipment.
Right.
Most of the stuff at the gym is ridiculous. It's not really give you functional strength. I won't go into, I could go into a long rant about exercise equipment and just like the gym mentality. But if you do it in this order, you don't have to, go to the gym, spend 15, 20 minutes going, then driving back.
Right.
You're going right in the cold plunge, you're getting out, drying off, and you're grabbing the kettlebell. And the workout is maybe 15 to 20 minutes. And you're doing it at a high speed, little rest, because you want to keep moving, because you can feel the cold catching you when you get out. So you want to keep moving. So it's like there is no motivation to work out hard. It just comes to you naturally. And
Right.
you're in like an animal instinctual way. You're ready to attack it. So to me, it's the most sustainable system like I've ever been in. Like I've been doing lots of, like, to me, this is the greatest. And everyone that tries it absolutely loves it just because you don't need motivation. And I think, I don't know if you agree, but like if you rely on motivation, you're kind of doomed a little in the long run.
I always put forward, motivation is garbage. It's about being driven and being disciplined. That's what a lot of the great athletes will tell you. Motivation fades. Motivation, like you said, listening to a motivational speaker could motivate you for a day, 2 days, maybe even a week, but it fades. What happens when there are plenty of times where I go for a run or I wake up and I go to the gym and I don't want to. It's my body's sore or I'm tired or the weather sucks. That's a huge one for
Yeah.
running. I run for an hour straight every other day or every 2 days, and it's been nasty weather. It's been cold. See, I rather run, and most people love the cold. I rather run when it's 90 than run when it's 30. That's just me personally. But, there are plenty of times where I don't want to run, where I'm running and I'm like, you know what? Let's just turn back. We don't need to run an hour. We already ran 20 minutes. That's more than most people ran this week. But it's about keeping that discipline and drive, focusing on, like you said, having an end goal, having results. Or one of the things that David Goggins talks about is setting goals that are too easy to meet, that are too short, and then now you're out of goals. You got to
Yeah.
set different stacks of goals and have long-term ones to reach as well. And I think that's so important. Yeah, I always say motivation fades. It could be good if you want to add it on top of your drive and discipline on those days you're feeling a little more down, like you've got a go-to song or someone you listen to, but it shouldn't be what gets you where you're going. It should be maybe something to help you get through what you're already committed to doing.
Yeah. And back to like the like my workout and cold plunge, it's very simple.
Yeah,
Everything in my system is simple because simple always beats complex. Simple works.
yeah,
And, we do live in an age of we're all fooled by complexity. People
hmm,
see something and they just gravitate towards complexity. Oh, this is great. You could use AI as an instance. It's still in its infancy, but like it's a complex black box, and it does produce a lot of bad answers. But people are mesmerized by the complexity behind it. They
right.
start believing the answers, even though deep down they know they're wrong. So I talk a lot about systems. I do have a background in system dynamics. And the human body, is one big system. Why doctors fail us because they don't look at it like that. But if you have a system, and like I'm very anal about this, is I have everything worked out, and why I stay on this track is like I have a morning routine. Like I know exactly, like step by step. I wake up, there's a 30-ounce bottle of water next to me. I'm drinking it while in bed. I get up, I use the bathroom, brush my teeth, shave. I come back, I'm hitting push ups, leg raises. Then I start doing other things, other exercises. Then I'm dragging another 30. I have it all planned out step by step. And then I have
Right,
contingency plans. If I wake up late, I'm going to if I can't get the whole routine in, what do I do?
right.
And so like if you have everything planned out with contingency plans for like every segment in your day, and I also use checklists. So I know it sounds kind of ridiculous, but like at night I have a checklist. I'm going to fill up the water, I'm bringing it upstairs, I'm going to make sure everything is prepped for the morning. And
Nice.
I rely on it is because you take away another decision you have, another memory. When it's written down and it's systematized, you have more willpower for the big items because we only have so much willpower. And every time you have to make a decision, it's willpower. And we are flooded with decisions all day long. If you open up the
Hmm.
phone and anything else. So it's like you don't want your willpower drained because we only have a finite amount. We want it on the big task. It's like, are you doing like mindless tasks first thing upon rising? If you are, is it helping your productivity or
Mm.
hurting it? Could you do it at night when you're brain dead? Versus, like you have to plan the
Right.
whole day out in a systematic way. And most people don't do that. And most people, like for a gym routine, they want to they see someone online and they're like, I'm buying his routine for $80. Well, that routine was designed for him. It's not designed for you.
Mm,
So, like,
100%.
I don't like the run. I can run, but I don't like it personally. So your system would not be compatible with my system. But I help people create their system with all the contingency plans on it.
Right.
So you know what to do. And it sounds like not very like people want always when I work with them, they're like, let's get to the good stuff. And it's like you gotta systematize it, you gotta adjust the system, you have to be compatible with the system. So the
Right.
system takes everything away. So if you're hurt, like I have working out wise, if I'm hurt, I'm gonna do this. If I'm not hurt, I'm gonna do this. So there's like lots of like even though it's memorized in my head, I spent the time to put it on paper
Right.
just to, to do it. And it's like people underestimate how powerful it is from everything when you don't have to make decisions. You're leaving the house for a prolonged period of time. Like, how much water am I going to bring? Most people just run out the door, and it's probably not the best idea because then all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, I don't have water. They start stress. I wish I forgot, I should have brought this. It's like, where's your checklist? I mean, like if it's good enough for doctors to use, pilots to use, the military to use, why aren't you doing it for basic stuff?
Right. It's all these small things that unintentionally set you up for failure or success. And I think a great example we've all maybe can relate to or have heard about is you're driving home and you're like, I should get gas now. I'll just get it in the morning. Like that's one way to set yourself up for failure if you're not disciplined enough to wake up earlier and make that time. Or like you said, filling your water the night before so you don't fall behind in your routine, waking up and you're like, oh, I'm not going to fill up my water. I got to get going or whatever it is. And I think one example too, I like to go to, a lot of the fictional film industry reflects a lot of real life pretty accurately. And one of those is the Rocky Four movie, where he's just out in the woods in the barn training, doing pull-ups and push-ups and training for his fight. Meanwhile, they've got the competitors doing, these electronic testing. They're seeing how much punching force he has. And we've seen other shows do that where you've got one person who's using all this technology and gear and all these statistics, and then you got one person just training the old fashioned way. And you look at like people years before the gym was invented were getting in shape using these natural bodybuilding means. And we've gotten so far from that. Like you said, there's so much gym influencers online, so many different people. Like I was watching, hundreds of YouTube videos the other day on working out. And guess what? Everyone's telling you something different. Everyone has the best bicep workout, the best tricep workout, right? And you said something so important, which is about tailoring it to your physique. Every one of us is unique. Our bodies respond differently to things. Yes, they're general, and that's the problem. Everyone wants a one size fits all. They want to just buy a cookie cutter copy paste routine that they can just do because it makes it easier. It takes away the hard work of having to create checklists, of having to create systems. And so I think that's one of the unfortunate parts. And I do think it's so important to tailor it to your physique based off your height, your weight, your medical conditions. Like you said, the body is a big system full of other systems working together. And one of the episodes I had, we talked about that, how, so many doctors want to isolate parts and not look at how they work in the system or what parts of the system are affecting it. And then going into, stuff to help our fitness routine, you have your book, Savage Chill, which is about, not just fitness, but mental health and lifestyle as well. Who would you say, as we wrap this episode up, would benefit the most from it?
I think anyone that wants consistency in their life would
Mm,
benefit because I think there's like lots of important points. Like even if you took one important, like even just water, it's a pretty, it will improve your life. I mean, I have a whole thing on killing identities, subtraction, like in going over the four different domains of subtraction.
mm,
I think it's going to help you regardless, whichever section you pick. Digital discipline, clutter, your mind is a battlefield. I think it's like it's kind of a whole like a life, like a life type system, and it's like working out and getting strong is. part, is one of the big benefits. And
Right.
like the diet is good, but like the diet, I naturally gravitated towards it is for the longest time, I think maybe since 2007, I've been just eating one meal a day.
Wow.
And it was mostly meat based. But then when I met my wife, she, said, I just eat meat. And I was like, you know what? That sounds great. And I think the big misconception, and like it always scared me why I always ate fruit was if you don't eat fruit or fiber, you won't use the bathroom, which it's totally not true. That was my biggest concern.
Mm.
And I noticed right away that it definitely lifted my like mental clarity just eating meat. And one of the craziest things is your sense of smell really increases. I don't know why you're more predatorial. I know I probably shouldn't use that word in today's world, but
I understand what you mean.
yeah. And like 'cause when we got married, also like she brought into it is like no scented detergent, all natural, no scented dishwashing, or fabric softener in the
Right, right.
dryer. And all of a sudden, I'm out doing the cold plunge. I live in a townhome, so people are walking down the corridor while I'm out there. And they walk past, and 5 minutes later, I can still smell the fabric softener. And I'm just thinking, like, oh my God. And like the effects it has on your
Right.
hormonal system is just unbelievable. You walk into places and they have the plugins everywhere, and you're like, oh, this is,
Yeah, yeah.
like you start realizing where there's chemicals everywhere, and they're definitely disrupting the endocrine system. It's just how much they are, I don't know. But when you eliminate it all of a sudden you have this like you're alive, like an animal, ready to, I mean, people walk past and you smell it. It's just like you're ready to go. You have, I would say, it probably increases testosterone tremendously because I'm now 49 and I feel stronger than I've ever been. My body feels better. Is it all carnivore? No, I mean, it's the whole system. And I can tell you, we go to Costco. We just went there, and we get a pallet of this grass fed butter, literally 36 pounds, and it lasts like a
Wow.
month. So I mean, like we're not scared of butter, and you're not going to get fat. But it's the sugars, the processed food. It's causing like hidden inflammations. And if you do the carnivore the right way, and like burgers are a big part of it. I love liver. I eat that raw, but there's a method to my raw eating of liver. It comes in frozen blocks. I get mine at Wild Fork. I'm
Okay.
sure you know, and it's literally a pound is $2. So in the other misconception about carnivore, it's expensive. It's not. $2 for a pound of liver is a pretty good deal, and it's so nutrient packed. It's crazy. I let it on the counter for like 10, 15 minutes. I chop it up in the blocks, after it's still frozen. Melt butter, salt it, dip it in. It is delicious. It has a sweet flavor and it's unbelievable. Then I have burgers with it. It's phenomenal. And then the other staples, like as you go through carnivore, there's like you sometimes like super lots of fat. And if you need a lot of fat, like when I got on it, like I was probably like too lean. I was like sickly lean. So I was eating like lots. I was doing a lot of smoked brisket,
Mm.
everything else. And I think I did gain a little weight, but I felt healthier. Like I have before and after
Right.
photos. It was unbelievable. Then all of a sudden, like I can't eat brisket anymore. Like it's just like too heavy for me.
Huh.
I was doing the short ribs a lot, and I can't eat short ribs anymore. So now it's just back to burgers, picanha, and steaks and liver. So you have to just listen to your body on this. And I think like with all these things, you get in touch with your body. You're in the ice plunge. You're getting in touch with your body and how you navigate through it. And like you find your way, how you deal with discomfort. You're listening to your body. So you're more understanding of what you need. And everyone on Carnivore does it differently, but you
Yeah.
just have to find your own path with everything. Some things might be good for you, they might not be good for me. And it's just about listening to the data, making the necessary adjustments to what makes you feel good. There is no one size fits all for anything in life. Anyone tells you that, it's just a lie. But I think it's the structure, how you plant it. And that's like one of the, I can't emphasize enough the importance of systems
Right.
and, and like killing off the old identities so you have like a clear mission. It's just, I think it's a great book. I have an online school for it. It's great. I mean, I put a lot of work into it, and I really want to help people. And ironically, I will say this: is originally I designed this. I thought it would be for guys like my age, and I found that they're stuck in their ways. They don't want to change. They're already
Mm,
programmed. And the
yeah.
younger guys are eating it up. They love it because they know it's like they're like, yeah, let's do it. Let's get in that cola. I want to go longer. And I have to tell people, no, no, take it easy. And on the other side, it's also kind of crazy in today's world is I've seen a lot of women in the program and they're tough, much tougher than men in general. They're mentally way tougher, and they don't complain like you have men they're complaining. So it's kind of crazy world we live in, but women really gravitate towards this. And younger guys love it, but the guys my age are pretty like
I
you
get what
know
you're saying. Yeah.
yeah, they're I hate to say lost cause, but very close to it.
Mhm. Yeah, a lot of people from the younger generations are getting very health conscious with what they eat, with the way they work out, and a lot of people are trying to push past and filter through all the noise we have on the internet. And so I appreciate what you're doing, and we're going to have your website in the description below for people to check out your online school and to check out your book. I think for anyone listening, again, it doesn't hurt to try something new. If you've been in the same routine and not seeing results, this is something to look into, research further on your own. And obviously, they could always contact you for more. And again, your book has a lot of information in it, along with the online school.
Uh,
But
a ton. It's got a ton of information, and I just want to leave with that is no matter your situation, there's always something there. There is always a solution,
mm,
and I think it's really important. You have to persist, and you have to accept setbacks along the way, but there is always a situation. You have to test and ditch what doesn't work. And if something works, keep doing it, try to do it better, and make it more effective. But there's always a solution. And I think that if you don't give up, you will eventually find your way.
I agree 100%. And no panicking and no whining.
Whining. Yes, exactly.
All right. Well, Mr. Cordin, thank you so much for what you've shared today and for what you're doing. I'm glad that you've been able to turn your life around and are now giving that gift back to other people to do the same. So thank you for your work and for your time today.
Thank you.